Today, researchers will be given 3 minutes to present their research studies, and one of the participants will be chosen by the jury as the winning participant. When we announced this PhD showcase, we received a lot of applications, and the jury made a preliminary assessment. Normally we would have 16 participants today, but we have some missing people, so they made a short list of 16 participants. I'd like to introduce the jury. Mayor of Büyükçekmece, Dr. Hasan Akgün. He's also a member of the Council of Marmara Municipalities Assembly. Dr. Yunus Uğur from Istanbul Technical University, Associate Professor Hatice Arataş from İzmir Economic University, Department of Architecture, Associate Professor Aslı Ceylan Öner, Marmara University, Political Sciences, Associate Professor Ülkü Arıkboğa, École Polytechnique Federal Network Administration Manager, and Istanbul Technical University, Istanbul Regulation Center Director, Dr. Matthias Ringer, Carleton University, Dr. Howard Duncan, Bilecik Şeyh Edebali University, Dr. Özgür Sayın. Let me briefly remind you of the rules of the contest, but I need to take a sip from my water first. You all know the rules. Let me briefly remind you of the rules though. The presentations will be delivered in English, and each of you will have 3 minutes. If you exceed 3 minutes, you will be disqualified. You will have a countdown, a timer right in front of you, so you can adjust yourself. You will be using PowerPoint slides. It will be static, no animations. Laser pointers, note cards, or additional accessories are not allowed as well. The presenter, when the presenter begins his or her remarks, the countdown will start. And when the slide is on the screen, the timer on the bottom left corner will start the countdown as well. When the time is over, the countdown will stop. I will invite the contestants one by one. Ümmü Gülsüm. Am I supposed to present from there?
Breathing clean air is fundamental for our health. In 2016, critical pollution level, particulate pollution level, is exceeded in 85 cities of Europe. Unfortunately, 65 cities is from Turkey and 6 cities are from Marmara region. Fighting against air pollution is a complex work. You should consider the pollution caused by the people or the pollution transported from other countries or atmospheric processes. Modeling studies allows to deal with all the sources in one hand. In my thesis, I calculated air pollutants in Europe by participating in an international project. At the end of the project, all groups calculated air pollution close to their actual values in Western Europe countries. At the same time, all groups calculated air pollutants quite different than actual values in Eastern Europe countries, especially in Turkey. In my thesis, I am calculating this uncertainty, thinking that the pollution caused by this is just influenced from the inputs. I calculated one of the inputs, which is the emission inventory. From by participating in a national project, we went to industrial facilities and we calculated final emissions. At the end, we saw that our results, our inputs are not considering 60% of the emissions. This is uncertainty. And now, in my thesis, I am calculating uncertainty by using some statistical techniques, such as Monte Carlo simulation, bootstrap method, distribution fitting methods, and trying to contribute scientific community for better estimation of the particulate pollution and for increasing the technical capabilities for policy making. Thank you.
Tamam, teşekkür ederim. If you are a student, single, or sometimes not married with a children, or not have a professional job, sorry, you cannot rent this house or flat. Maybe you heard or said this kind of words before. Now, in this room, some of you are homeowner or renter. And probably you know from your previous experience, these two groups of people have different view and feeling about each other. And generally, in housing and community studies have same approach about these two groups of people. Like, if you are a renter, you don't have enough money to buy your house, you make your house, sometimes you don't pay your rent on time, and you are not interested on your local community and your living area. Oppositely, if you are homeowner, you are spending more time in your house, you are interested in your living area and your local community. And in my study, I'm interested in particularly England, as below official statistics shows homeowners are over 60% and renters, they has been increasing over the last 20 years. Statistically, these two groups of people are like as a two significant side of daily life and housing market. In my study, I examined both homeowners and renters' belonging and participation in daily life. The aim of my research is that how residential studies important to explain belonging and connection with other people and their living area. For this aim, I focused on Ocean Village in Southampton, which is established south of England, and it has been redeveloping since 1980s, and it is one of the attractive, new and modern part of the city of Southampton, with its leisure and residential facilities. And I made 42 interviews and 177 surveys to reach my aim. Then I realized the area of Ocean Village is expensive for all residential groups. And population, about 50% are owner-occupiers and 50% are renters in this area. It means the area of Ocean Village is attractive for all residential groups at the same time. And my thesis shows the Ocean Village is unifying different residential groups at the same time, regardless of their different background in terms of age, education, nationalities, lifestyles, and occupation. And additionally, they are interested in their local area and their living environment and local issues at the same time. And the biggest contribution is residential studies still important to explain people's belonging and feeling in community, but location is another important factor that we need to explain people's feeling and belonging in a specific community. Thank you.
Evet, tamamdır. Okay. Hello. Çok pardon, oturdum buraya.
Geliyor mu ses?
Ses geliyor.
Geliyor.
Hı, tamam. Çıkabilir miyim? İstediğim zaman açabiliyorum. Hı, tamam. When I was a little girl, okay. When I was a little girl, I couldn't stop dreaming. I will be running in the forests of the Amazon, playing with healthy and wealthy children from Africa, and traveling to Antarctica. I have also dreamed using flying cars because I had no idea about carbon emission at that time. Now, I am 27 years old, and when I close my eyes, I don't want to imagine that what happens if the world warms up by 2 degrees Celsius. We all know that. That is the point of no return. The point of no return. The world is becoming a lot drier, temperatures are rising and damaging the ecosystem, and small islands around the world are at risk of disappearing. Could you just close your eyes for 5 seconds and think of changing your daily lifestyle habits to save more energy? I strongly believe that small actions can have big impacts, as in Lorenz's butterfly effect phenomenon. Firstly, individual to individual, then individual to the community, and finally, community to the policy. So, you don't need superpowers to stop climate crisis or to reach decarbonization goals. You already have power to change the world. In my thesis, I focused understanding and changing energy consumption behaviors. I applied a mixed methodology in the context of living lab approach. 100 volunteers from Kadıköy district in Istanbul are actively use the web-based platform, which we build up to trigger energy-saving behavior. And then they received historical goal setting and comparative feedbacks, and we organized face-to-face meetings such as movie night, my energy story night, so on. I collected their data and monitored over the 9-month period. At the end of the experiment, our initial data results show that we can do this. People improved their energy-saving behavior. Behind me, as you can see from her smile, she is one of our volunteers. We can create our energy-efficient urban lifestyle for future generations. I'm Rümeysa Ceylan. This is my 3-minute speech.
Bende misin? Tamam.
Açık sessiz şu anda konuşabilirsiniz.
Tamam. Dear audience, I am Duygu Demiroğlu-Duyar, and I participate this competition with the topic of the role of network governance in urban policy making, the case of Istanbul. The subject of this study is to explain this role on the basis of the formulation and implementation process of highway public transport policies in Istanbul. The purpose of this study is to discuss concept of network governance, which we can be positioned it among the postmodern public administration debates as theoretical and practical dimensions. And so it is contribute to the debates for public administration by driving an analytical perspective. The research method of this study is based on the qualitative method. Two types of data are obtained in this study. First of data is about perception, actors' perception on transport problems, partnerships, coordination and coordination, and formal and informal relations, between relevant policy actors. In this study, two types analyzing methods are used. They are content analysis and network analysis. According to results, it can be said that network governance plays small role in urban highway transport policies in Istanbul, and this role this role depends on network structure, policy actors' perceptions of network and governance, and policy process. It can be said that network governance cannot be considered a general paradigm, general theory, or good organization for public administration, rather than it should be handled with a realist approach. And finally, it can be said that Istanbul... Thank you very much.
Evet. Urban heat island is defined as observing higher temperatures in large cities by comparison with rural surroundings. And according to a wide range of literature, urban form, geometry, density, function, and surface materials related to urban fabric affect energy exchange between surface and atmosphere, change local microclimate, and lead to urban warming and urban heat island. My PhD aims to produce urban design alternatives to minimize the UV effect and to provide a roadmap for designing climate-sensitive urban forms. And in this perspective, I have three research questions. How effective is urban fabric on formation of UV? What kind of design strategies can be adapted to the urban areas for UV mitigation? And does computational design approach increase the mitigation capacity of UV? During PhD, I developed two models. One is GIS-based multivariate model for UV analysis, and the other is interactive computational design model for UV mitigation. When I ran the first model for the case of Istanbul, I calculated the effect of urban morphological attributes on UV formation as 67%. That's a huge number for UV mitigation in Istanbul. And also, that means by reorganizing and redesigning the spatial structure of Istanbul, I mean by regenerating or renovating city, we have 67 power for UV mitigation. And also analysis model gives us some local coefficients of parameters, and computational design model works on these local coefficients by producing design alternatives. And computational model also works on some code-based algorithms classified as geometry, density, material-based codes. Finally, it gives us some design combinations with mitigation capacities and proceeds till reaching the maximum reduction capacity of UV. It's an interactive tool working as decision support mechanism for planners, designers, and decision makers. It's actually a procedural model lying on generative urbanism key concept. And finally, I should say, my PhD research theoretically and methodologically contributes to urban microclimate issues and urban informatics research areas. Thank you.
Bu demek.
Well, airports are not just airports. Oh, tamam. Ya. Başa dönerseniz sevinirim. Tamam. Tamam. Başladı mı? Başladı. Gözükmedi. Okey. Çünkü biraz non-representational bir tavırla. Evet. Airports are not just airports. Almost like magnets, they drove in the global flows of mobilities and distributed across the terrain they are located in. As such, they're scalar entities that organize the whole territory around them. They are also cities of their own and representative of the cities they are in. They have been famously stigmatized as non-spaces or global spaces or effective spaces of mobilities with bodily and enacted understandings of space, which the whole culture around the flying is formed of. So they are, from the very bodily experiences to the global connectivities, airports entail multiscalar realities that form around themselves. And my dissertation, taking Istanbul Airport as a case, creates a narrative that is based around the literature review and that is based around the understanding of Harvey and Lefebvre's scale notions, and has a multiple perspectives approach to one of the largest aviation projects to the date and to the largest project of the Republic, which has immense territorial restructuring capabilities. So when I look, as I said, from a bodily perspective to the global perspective, a comparative and descriptive study into airports in general, and then reflecting in Istanbul Airport. One certain note is also just to give it a perspective of Istanbul's airport spatial capacities. Istanbul Airport lies on a site that is larger than Manhattan and connected through the urban and forming airport corridors and airport cities. They actually create splintered and bounded urbanization. Something that is still in formation, that is still something that we can see, but it is also an invisible undertow that is closely related to the urban mega project scheme that includes Kanal Istanbul and also the new Istanbul project, as well as infrastructural formations in the north. So that is essentially what I am looking, and thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my presentation. In today's world, people living in big cities complain about their cities in terms of safety issues, the size of their city, lack of attachment, lack of solidarity, lack of trust. And they would like to live in smaller areas and in smaller cities. However, people living in small cities, they also complain about their cities, like it's so boring, there is nothing to do, they cannot reach the artistic events, etc. But what are those positive characteristics of small cities that the people living in big cities talk about? I was searching for this for the answer of this question in terms of creativity, because creativity for small cities is almost always ignored in literature. So I defined 4 deadlocks and 4 opportunities in big cities, for deadlocks and for opportunities in small cities. The first deadlock for big cities is the gentrification and urban revitalization, which are the negative outcomes of creative economy and creativity-based projects. And in small towns, we have strong identity and sense of belonging. And the second one is quality of life. It is high in big cities. However, in small cities, people are happier and more satisfied with their lives. And thirdly, there is severe and deep income inequality and precarity regarding the creative economy and creative employment. While in small towns, we don't have a big creative economy, but we have this solidarity by which people can achieve a lot of things with limited financial resources. And thirdly, and finally, there is a correlation set between creative class and economic growth in cities. And creative class generally live in big cities, as defined, for example, by Richard Florida. However, defining a small portion of a society as creative is discriminative in some ways as well. However, in small towns, everyone can engage with the creative processes and creative practices, and it can be spread out all city. That's why we can define a concerted or collective creativity in small towns. So I analyzed SINOP by keeping in mind these questions, and I could define 4 deadlocks and 4 opportunities for small towns based on my semi-structured interviews and literature review and case study analysis. Thank you.
Ben çıkayım.
Kayhan hala yok galiba. O zaman şöyle yapacağız. Sezen Hanım geçeceğiz. Gülce Kırgın.
So my presentation is about a smart management approach for livable cultural environment. The aim of the thesis is to understand the functioning of the Istanbul Historical Peninsula, to detect the undervalued cultural spaces and develop strategies for livable cultural environments. The related works focus on the user experience with just cultural artifact, but they don't consider the whole cultural context. So the study aims to focus the context to provide a basis for higher user engagement. So how this study will be conducted, we will employ data-driven approach known as big data approach through computational analysis methods using ICT technologies, and then the research questions of the studies are which data types will be used and to what extent a big data approach can be utilized, and how a smart management model can be developed using this approach. So regarding this information, we develop a method using user-generated data, which is obtained through the social media platforms, besides the spatial data and survey data. So the user-generated data would be useful to understand how the space functions and what are the connections. What are the methods of the studies, we define the livability and parameters, analyze the correlations, identify the less livable space, and develop a smart management model using the decision support model to evaluate its impact on livability and user engagement. In conclusion, using this methodology, I think the cultural environment can become a livable and intelligent context rather than just an informative and representative purposes. So thank you for listening to me.
İyiyim şu an.
Konuşmada ses az geliyorsa şöyle tutup yukarı kaldırırız.
Şu an olsun.
Jürimiz hazırsa.
Boş. Bir dakika. Sorry. Yeniden. Hello everyone. Anti-Syrian discourse and intergroup tensions have become more apparent, particularly after the economic crisis in Turkey. By conducting a multi-level and multi-method research design, I investigate why and how host society members approve violent collective action against refugees. My presentation consists of 4 parts. First one is case selection. There are 4 similar variables in Esenyurt and Sultanbeyli: Syrian population, low levels of socio-economic development, and rural working class population, and the coexistence of ethnic groups. But these districts are different in terms of intergroup tensions. Based on my dataset that I collected from media news, I observed 5 collective incidents in Esenyurt, but no incident in Sultanbeyli. Second part is interviews. 57 muhtars are interviewed, and 4 focus group studies are conducted. In comparison, Sultanbeyli is more advanced in terms of health, education, and security services and social cohesion. And local and refugee population is more stable in Sultanbeyli. And the endowment of public services to Syrians are separated in Sultanbeyli thanks to Mülteci Association. It helps to reduce the level of intergroup competition in Sultanbeyli. The third part hypothesis formulated from interviews: institutional disadvantages and low social cohesion lead to higher level of threat perceptions. These perceptions are associated with anger towards Syrians, and anger leads to approval of violent collective action. Positive contact with Syrians decrease the negative effect of institutional disadvantages and low social cohesion, and honor culture and low institutional trust to police and law and government and the municipalities increase the effect of anger on collective violence. 4 part is next studies. I have 2 research studies, survey and social network analysis. First, through a representative survey in Esenyurt and Sultanbeyli, I will test this hypothesis. I will run a multi-level regression analysis. It includes both institutional and individual level variables. And also, I'll conduct a survey experiment in these surveys to investigate the role of anger and honor culture in terms of violent collective actions. And finally, through a social network analysis based on Twitter data, I will focus on violent incidents in Istanbul. Thank you for your listening.
Hı hı. Tamam mı? Ses tamam mı? Ses var. Tamamdır. Tamamdır. Sıkıntı yok. Tamam. Hı? Evet, yanlış olmasın. Bir kişi atladıkları için sanırım.
Tamam, şimdi Emin Bey, Emin Yahya.
Hı hı. Dear guests, from the beginning of our humanity, we know that our global environmental impact has increased sharper and sharper. And based on this global environmental impact, our lifestyles has also changed from hunters-gatherers to whatever we are today. And as we have evolved as humanity, our way of living, our way of settlement has also changed from rural to urbanized areas. Today, more than half of the population lives in urban areas, and by 2050, this ratio is estimated to reach at 68%, which means that in the near future, it is obvious there will be urban sprawl, urban areas will extend, and we will need new lands to occupy urban populations. Therefore, it is essential to plan this area in accordance with sustainable development goals. But how to measure sustainability by means of its ecological aspects? When we look at the literature, we see that ecological sustainability is basically measured with air quality, water quality, soil quality, and biodiversity indicators. But in the literature, we also see that there is a lack of incorporation of land use types with ecological aspects. In other words, we don't know how ecological aspects are affected by land use types. On the other hand, when we look at spatial planning phenomena, we see that spatial planning does not take into account ecological sustainability indicators. So the aim of this research is to cover this missing link between these two different sectors. Benefiting from ecosystem services mapping approach, we basically developed a novel model that basically scores land use types, ecosystem, ecological sustainability performance. And moreover, we also use land cover or land use area that we establish in our plans, our ecosystem service weights or environmental impact weights, and we also we use fragmentation levels for each land use types. Therefore, we have a holistic method to establish an ecological sustainability impact assessment tool. And we have developed a GIS model that can graph, that can map the impact that is occurred from land use plans. So with this method, with this new novel method, now each planner, each governor, or each practitioner can have a certain idea how their decisions on land will impact by means of ecological feature, which is, I believe, crucial for the future of our generations, how we use land and how we serve these next generations. Thank you.
Ben değil miyim? Burada oturayım. Çıkayım mı? Çıkayım mı? Evet.
Sorry?
They're making the evaluation.
Okay. I will connect it. Okay, hello everybody. I will start with two example situations and I want from you to imagine them with me. Now in the first example, imagine that you are in a very crowded area in your city with your friend and you want to stop only for 10 minutes to discuss or talk about something, but you can't because of the crowd. And even if you have the chance to stop and talk, you can't hear each other. And guess what? Just 2 minutes away from you, there is a green area which is suitable for your need, but you don't know about it, and almost nobody there know about it. Let's move to the second example. Imagine in your daily way to your work, you have to walk a 15 minutes road. At the same time, there is an alternative shortcut road which take only 3 minutes, but you don't use, and you know about it, but you don't use because it is empty and you feel unsafe there. I explained these two examples to define what we mean by undervalued open spaces in my thesis. However, in recent decades, the fast urbanization make from these spaces a phenomenon. In order to deal with these spaces, we revitalize them. In current revitalization processes, usually physical interventions introduced, and which consume more money and time. Thus, this thesis suggests revitalization by light. Yes, light, and specifically the technology of projection mapping. Projection mapping allows us to project visual content over any 3D object, from small scale to big scale, indoor or outdoor. In these days, this technology used only for advertisement and entertainment, but we want to take this technology for a new dimension and contemporary development, urban development. Thus, my research aimed to examine the efficiency of projection mapping in revitalizing urban public spaces, and to know under which circumstances it be more efficient, like which kind of spaces and which kind of contents. And this will be achieved by practical-led methodology. Thank you.
Could I go?
After the evaluation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, hello all. I took this picture 2 years ago when I was doing my fieldwork at the Greek island of Lesbos after the Syrian refugee crisis. So back at the time, at this refugee village camp, I saw this code, and I thought it's very interesting to share this with you today. So at this refugee camp, there were lots of Syrian, Afghans, and Iraqi families, which is the most important. So the most important thing today that I would like to share with you is why I decided to focus on Greece and Turkey relations. So basically, Greece and Turkey relations have never been easy at the last couple of years, let's say. So I decided through this PhD theme to examine the relations under the prism of the Geneva Convention, the 1951 Refugee Convention. So this is where my theme comes in. What are the obligations fulfilled, and what are the responsibilities that Greece and Turkey implemented after the Syrian refugee crisis? So what is the innovation of my research, and why I decided to focus on that? So basically, the innovation of the research is that there are few studies and findings based from the ground, focusing on Greece and Turkey and implementation of the convention. So with my research, what I aim to do is that I want to share my findings from the last 2 years that I conducted in Greece and Turkey and the Greek islands. And so I focus on how these refugee protection norms are implemented in both countries. So the most important questions that I ask in my research is how effective, how efficient the two asylum systems are. How are the beneficiaries of international protection are treated in these two countries? Of course, I understand that the size and the numbers are different. However, I feel that there is an added value to compare and have some findings from the ground. So I argue that the EU policy has led to violations of human rights, including containment policy, including the disastrous conditions and the overcrowding conditions at the islands. Also, I argue that the EU policy and the political decisions has violated human rights of refugees on the ground. And are you going to tell me, does this issue really matter? I would say that yes, it does really matter. Because migration and displacement, we can have it and we can everywhere. We can be displaced. We have one displaced person every 2 seconds, 70 million all around the world. So I conclude that this is not about nationality, but this is a matter, this is how we handle this whole issue of displacement and mobility in our lives. Thank you very much for your attention.
Arkadaşları kutluyorum. Güzel çalışmalar.
Congratulations, everyone. Well, we will see the details afterwards. As Marmara Municipalities Union, we support them, and I think our support was well deserved, and I hope all the best to our presenters.
I can say, okay. I just wanted to thank all the presenters. I know it's not easy, you know, to do these things in 3 minutes, but I think it shows that in 3 minutes we can get a good understanding of what actually the thesis is about. So I was quite impressed with the quality of the presentations. Thank you.
I also would like to echo my thanks to the people who organized this session. I work with something called the Metropolis Project, which is a migration-related project, and we have these same sort of events at our conferences. This one, I think, was particularly well organized, and it was a real pleasure to hear the presentations. The students are doing impressive work, and this is a wonderful thing to see. Thank you very much.
I'd like to add one comment. I mean, today was an excellent way of presenting your research, because I was told by my advisor at some point when I'm done with my PhD, if somebody asks, what did you do? If I could explain it with just one sentence, then I really did it. So today you had a good rehearsal of that. Congratulations.
Actually, this has been a very good opportunity for us to tackle actually our research projects in such a short time and in such a wide and very responsive, from what we have seen, jury. And we would like to thank all for the opportunity with that. And it was also very nice given the subjects, seeing the diversity of subjects that has been debated around urban issues. Thank you.
Oturum bitirmiyor musun? Kimse bir şey. Şu an kapalı.
Hediyeleri ve katılım belgeleri.
Sırayla mı? Tamam. Tamam. Çağır. Ama burada kalsınlar. Sen çağır şimdi. Sen öğrencileri sırayla çağır.
Tamam.
Tamam. Ben
Hediyeleri de getir.
sonra jüri üyelerimiz
Tamam.
sen sahneye çağıracaksın.
Tamam.
Mikrofon açık. Anladın değil mi? Ben anlatayım. Şimdi isim söyleyince sen anlayacaksın. Efendim merhaba. Şimdi Başak Hanım katılımcı öğrenci arkadaşlarımızı davet edecek buraya. Sonra jüri üyelerimiz başkanımızdan başlayarak katılımcılara sertifikalarını verecekler. En sonunda birinciyi ilan edeceğiz. Evet, sertifika alanlar sahnede beklesin lütfen.
Ümmü Gülsüm Hanım'ı davet et.
Let's follow the same order. Ümmü Gülsüm, could you please come forward?
Yahya'ya da verelim peki. Yahya senin neyin? Seninki neydi? Kalem var mı?
Rümeysa.
Niye veriyorsun? Dur ver sonra. Sen git oraya geliyorlar. İkisini beraber. Esasında
Duygu Hanım'ı alalım. Deniz Erdem okumuş. Elif Simge Fettahoğlu Özgen. Sanırım dönüşümlü oluyor ama. Hocam aslında tamam. Ama birinciden sonra. Mustafa seni alalım. Gülce Kırdar. Nezih Onur Kuru. Şimdi Özgür Bey var. Tamam. Hocam, one more. Yeah. Emin Yahya Menteşe. Kim varmış? Lima ve Christina. Lima. Özgür hocam, 2 kişiye de siz verirsiniz. Evet, gelmeyenler olmuş. Christina Valente. Şimdi buradan çekiliyorum. Şurayı kontrol edeyim. Bir dakika. Hala birinci.
Biraz daha yakın.
Tamam.
Bitti mi mikrofon için?
Hala birinci belli değil. Birinciyi açıklayacağız.
Yok, sesiniz gelmiyor zaten, konuşun da.
Öyle mi? Evet, şimdi kim o? Gel. Başkanım gel. Beylikdüzü Belediye Başkanımız Mehmet kardeşim.
The Mayor of Beylikdüzü, Mehmet Çalık.
O zaman şöyle yapalım. Ödülünü Mehmet Çalık Başkanım versin. Biz yeteri kadar verdik.
The Mayor will present the award for the winner.
Böyle yaldızlı olsun ya. İsmini açıklamıyorum.
I'm not going to declare the name yet. I'm waiting for them to put it down in writing. Emin Yahya Menteşe. Measuring ecologic sustainability in spatial planning. Your results will be of great benefit to us planners and decision makers. Congratulations. Now I'd like to invite Mayor of Beylikdüzü, Mr. Mehmet Çalık, to present the winner his award.
Tamam. Tamam. Bunun içerisinde money var.
Money mi var?
Bu da sertifika.
Alsak fena. Siz herhalde söylediniz. Evet. Emin Yahya
Emin Yahya Menteşe. Spatial planning and sustainability. I'm looking forward to reading more about your dissertation. Congratulations and good luck.
bir ödül daha aldınız herhalde. Tamam.
Şuraya girer misin? almak da nasip oldu yani. Evet, biraz öyle. Nereye gidiyorsun? Gel gitme. Bir dakika arkadaşım. Yok.
Ortaya mı alalım?
Hem izleyici
arkadaşlarıma çok teşekkür ediyorum. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the audience as well.
Belediyeler Marmara Belediye'mizin genel sekreteri
Secretary General of Marmara Municipalities Assembly, Cemil, and his team. They made a great job actually. We will continue to support young researchers. Each and every one of you have conducted very important studies. On behalf of the association and head of the association, I'd like to congratulate you once again and wish you good luck in your further studies. Thank you very much.